Long-run aggregate supply. First off, what is long-run aggregate supply? It is a graphical representation that shows the optimal level of production for the economy. So when you see the long-run aggregate supply, what you want to think of is that indicates the expansion phase in the business cycle, where GDP, inflation, unemployment are all normal or ideal. And that's where the level of production is at long-run aggregate supply. A little bit of background on long-run aggregate supply. Classical economists use this to identify where we are in the economy, what our potential is. So sometimes it's also called potential output. The short run doesn't matter, only the long run, according to classicals. So they never drew the short run aggregate supply curve, only the long run. And they felt that it was most important to not worry about short run problems, it will all be corrected. Now, with the emergence of the Great Depression, classical economics really lost a lot of its followers because with the Great Depression, they just kept saying, don't worry about it, it'll eventually get better. But when 30% of America was unemployed, critics started to turn to something else. Here's how you would draw a long-run aggregate supply. So we start with our price level and real GDP, and then it's very simply a vertical line. And we label that LRAS, and sometimes we can label it as potential output because that's what it refers to in the economy. Now we can shift LRAS, and it follows the same rules that we have before with aggregate demand and supply, which is you increase to the right and decrease to the left. When LRAS shifts, it's because of economic growth, some sort of long-run sustainable increase or decrease in real GDP, kind of like forever. And so the entire economy is more capable to produce. So think about the production possibility curve. So looking at this production possibility curve, it shows consumer goods versus capital goods. And for example, in the short run, we might see that we have unemployed resources. We call this idle resources, inefficient, something like that in the past. And so that's only a short run variance from the long run ideas that we'll always have full employment in the long run. And so we would be on the production possibility curve. If we want to shift the production possibility curve outwards, what we're saying is we've accumulated one of two things, either more technology or more resources, and so now we are more capable for the entire economy to produce more, in this case of both goods. So the two reasons we can shift LRAS is because of a change in technology, so we accumulate more technology, so that produces things faster, or we've accumulated more capital, or maybe more resources, such as we have more labor. Maybe the population goes up to 500 million Americans. So we're able to produce more overall and forever, so it's sustainable. So then we can shift it to the right, which would indicate here the change in from LRAS 1 to LRAS 2, showing that real GDP, the potential of our economy, has increased. So where this fits going forward into our model is we're going to use it when we talk about the three-stage SRAS, and recall that each phase in this three-stage SRAS curve refers to the recession, expansion, and peak. And from a long-run standpoint, where we always want to be at and what the economy is capable of sustaining is in this expansion phase somewhere the LRAS curve has to hit, because that's our potential output, or LRAS, for the entire economy, and that's sustainable during this expansion phase. So eventually we're going to get into the idea of fiscal policy. Let's say during the recession of 2008-2009, we're here. Okay, so real GDP is below where we want it to be here at Y star. Here's where it is in 2008, 2009, Y1. And so there's a gap here. Their unemployed resource, we had 10% unemployment, and then eventually, fiscal policy kicks in as well as other factors, and aggregate demand starts going up and up and up, and eventually where we're at today is pretty close to what's ideal. So I'm going to label that as aggregate demand ideal, because that's where it intersects SRAS and long-run aggregate supply, and this is our potential GDP, our potential output. This is where we want to produce at. So this is our AD ideal, and then this was where we were in 2008-2009, indicated as in the recessionary part of SRAS.